fans, and welcome to another episode of Horror Q&A here on Silver Screams. I'm Megan Salinas.
I'm Katie Cullen.
And today we are talking about a little movie called Evil Dead Rise. Yay!
So, for those unfamiliar with the format, hi, welcome, we love you. This is going to be a not-so-brief interview where I haven't seen the movie.
And I have.
Now I have a bowl of popcorn.
And I have whiskey.
And when one of us finishes, the movie is over. The movie is over. I got so close!
You're getting
so close! No! It's so close to nailing it right at the end.
I'm very proud of you. Take that, rewind it back. Whoop.
No, it's out there. It's out there already.
Oh no, I just meant pick it up where you left off.
Oh no, that was also it. Like when one of us finishes, the interview is over. We sign out.
Okay, no, take two. But yeah, so
I'm sorry, were you gonna edit that out? I never know how much editing goes into these.
None. I'm not editing a single thing unless we need to do like a timeout and take a break.
Unless there needs to be like a wait a minute moment.
Mostly like if we need more water or something like that.
Yeah.
No,
the water is not subject to things running out. The water is necessary for life. This is not water, but it's very good.
It is delicious. So the first 15 maybe minutes or so, 10-ish, we'll try to keep things spoiler-free.
All spoilers.
All spoilers?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you want to get right to the
Oh, you think I'm not going to jump right in the deep end here?
Okay, in that case, very, very, very briefly, as a fan of the Evil Dead franchise, I very much enjoyed this film. I give it a thumbs up. I'm not sure exactly where I rank it in terms of like my tier list for the films, but if you were a fan of the 2013 remake, you will enjoy this. If that wasn't your cup of tea, it is very much in that same vein stylistically. I leave it up to your discretion if that is your cup of tea or not.
If Army of Darkness is your speed, then maybe not this one.
That's incorrect because all of them are my speed.
Okay, but like Army of Darkness exclusively.
But if Army of Darkness is the only one where you're like, yes, that one, because it's just a Three Stooges episode, then yeah, this one probably, again, your mileage may vary. But if, like I said, if you're a fan of the 2013 remake, if you're a fan of Evil Dead 2, you will probably have a good time with this one. I do recommend it. Go check it out. Great performances, great practical effects, of course. And yeah, I give the movie credit for doing some stuff differently, although I think there are certain things that I think it was a little too on the nose on, referential-wise. I think there is this kind of interesting push and pull of like, we are going so far out of the comfort zone of Cabin in the Woods that we make our references a little bit more on the nose to stay in that comfort level. But that is the extent of my spoiler-free go check out the movie. It's a good time. That's it. All right. You've been warned.
Legit, we're going into spoilers now.
Spoilers.
Who lives?
So
everyone who didn't stop the spoiler warning, like, it can't be that bad, going, oh shit, like, yeah,
Hold
no,
on.
go, if you're gonna watch the movie, go watch the movie. That is your last little bit of who lives.
if you've watched the trailer more than once,
like we do.
it is very easy to tell who lives and who dies. The only people who 100% for sure make it out okay is Auntie Beth, and the youngest little girl, Cassie.
So final girl and baby.
Final girl and baby. Yes. Those are the two that make it out. And again, if you've seen the trailer, they did a pretty good job of like, again, only showing you brief glimpses. But if you're like me and you've gone to the movie theater more than once in the past month, you've seen that you're able to pick up on what those quick flashes are referencing, and what those flashes show is both the middle girl, Bridget, and the oldest son, Danny, definitely becoming Deadites.
Oh.
Yep. So,
Wow.
and, you know,
And a Deadite means you don't make it out.
Yeah. Mama Ellie, she's the main Deadite of the film. She definitely. This is unlike the 2013 movie. Nobody gets undeadite-ified. Once you are a Deadite in this movie,
you're done.
You're done. You're done. So Mom, Bridget, and Danny all get got. But luckily, Auntie Beth and Cassie do make it out. So there's that.
All right.
Also, none of the neighbors make it out okay.
Oh, jeez. How many neighbors do we have in this equation? Aren't they in an apartment building?
They are in an apartment building. It actually takes place in Los Angeles.
Oh, shit.
It's an apartment building in LA. A fictional one, obviously. Yeah. But one of the, luckily it's not an apartment filled with, tons and tons of people. Apparently there's some landlord shenanigans going down and everybody's getting kicked out within, the next week or so.
Ooh.
So a lot of people have already moved out. But there are still a number of people on their floor. There's one family comprising of Gabe, Jake, and Scott. That's one adult and two teenagers.
Oh, boy.
Well, one teenager and another little kid. And these guys, I don't know if Gabe's their dad or if all three of them are just brothers. But we get introduced to Jake and Scott. They knock on the family's door. I think the older one's name is Jake. He clearly has a crush on Bridget.
Oh dear.
And so I loved their introduction. He knocks on their door and she answers and they're like, "Hey, we're having a Freddy marathon. Do you want to come watch?" It's just we're watching all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And Scott, the younger one, who's clearly been dragged into this, is like, "Yeah, even the shitty ones." And then Jake, knee-jerk reactions, "There are no shitty ones!" And of course,
we're gonna miss you when you're gone.
And Bridget turns him down. And it's one of those things where it's they're clearly all buddies, but Jake clearly has a crush on her, and whether or not she reciprocates is up in the air. But it was definitely one of those I don't have time to deal with you chuckleheads right now.
So do they wipe out all the neighbors that are left?
Yep.
How? Gas explosion?
Well, actually, all the neighbors...
Not actually kidding.
All the neighbors get killed and turned into deadites. Honestly, we don't really touch on what happens to the neighbors after a certain point.
So they've kind of figured out this whole spreading deadite plague in a population center then. We're in spoiler territory.
We are.
I'm asking you these questions. Stop being coy.
It's more just once I start answering, it's gonna need that answer is gonna need context. So you ask one question,
that's how we do
and
this,
then all of a sudden, my answer is so at the start of the movie. But actually, there is an implication that there's not really a way to stop it this time.
Great.
This time around, I won't say the movie starts, but the story essentially starts when Beth finds out that she's pregnant. She's a guitar technician. She's been on the road for months and months, and so she finds out she's pregnant. So she's like, "Ugh, this is an interesting occurrence for me." So she decides that she's going to go visit her sister and her sister's family to sort of figure out what to do next. And but because she's living that musician lifestyle, she's on the road all the time. Mm-hmm. She kind of missed/ignored the memo in which her sister called 2 months prior to say, "My husband's left me."
Oh.
And so this is the first time since that's happened. And so she starts pulling out souvenirs and she's like, "And I got this for your guys' dad. What do you think?" And there's this super awkward silence. And so Ellie sends the kids off to go get pizza from Henrietta's Pizza, BTW, which, again, fun little reference to the first one there. I guess no, Evil Dead 2. In my brain, Evil Dead 2 is Evil Dead.
I mean, kinda.
Yeah. But anyway. And so while they're out and while the sisters are sort of like trying to navigate that whole awkward situation, there's an earthquake because Los Angeles, we're in LA. Yeah.
Okay, get on with it.
The ground opens up and it turns out there's a bank vault underneath their apartment complex, and that is where the Necronomicon has been
Oh my god.
It doesn't go by the Necronomicon. It goes by the same name that they gave it in the 2013 movie, and the implication is actually, like, it's not even an implication, they straight out say this is one of 3 books. Basically implying that both the original Evil Dead trilogy canon and the canon of the 2013 film all do exist within the same world.
Wow.
And it also explains why that Necronomicon and the 2013 Necronomicon and why this book all look different from each other.
Yes, they were all the skin of the same person, but only one of them got the face.
This one got teeth.
Ah!
This one's got teeth.
Great.
This one's got teeth, and it only opens up when somebody bleeds on it.
Why would you keep that? Why would you put that in a vault? Why would you put that in a population center?
I have answers to some of those questions.
Yes, I need you to answer those like now. Fuck context, just tell me.
So, the book, apparently, like, I think 100 years prior, was found by a couple priests, like, and they were like, we know we're not supposed to, but we're actually gonna, like, research this book. There could be a lot of valuable information from it. And so they do, and all of this gets recorded on vinyls, like like on old school records.
Yes.
While our main characters listen after shit has already gone down, but they start listening to it, and basically what happened is that one of the priests is recounting this tale as best he can, but basically one by one, every sort of brother in their order got deadified, and unlike previous versions of, the story, dismembering, setting on fire, these things did not work. In terms of stopping the demon from, like, tormenting people and things like that.
This really is the fuck the rules version of Evil Dead, isn't it?
A little bit.
It brought children into it. We're no longer in an isolated location. Like, this one really just went...
It kind of did. And, like, what is, like, when all is said and done, what is left of Ellie, Bridget, and Danny is still very much twitching in the parking structure floor.
Oh, fun.
Like, they get chainsawified and then put through, like, a mulcher, and the bits of them that are scattered on the ground are still twitching.
Wow, that's rude.
Isn't it? It's one, it's really disgusting, and 2, it's very rude, and then 3...
You put a child through a mulcher and it's still twitching.
2 childs.
Two childs.
Oh, and also, not to mention, this is after, essentially, the 3 of them come together and form, like, a Dark Souls boss Deadite that just starts running around. It's real gross and real messed up.
I'm sorry, they also do the fleshy amalgamate bit, and then they get wood chipper?
Yep.
Wow! This is an Evil Dead movie?
Yes, it is!
Like, what if Army of Darkness were scary? Because Army of Darkness is where we got, like, the body horror and the weird shit and the
like, I'm bad Ash, you're good Ash, like, but that, like, came out of Ash's shoulder and everything like that. So like,
what if Army of Darkness, but, like, actually legitimately terrifying?
Yeah, a little bit. So yeah, and we don't really know how the whole thing with the priests ended up wrapping up, because as the guy's recording this, he's like, I'm the only one left, and I know it's only a matter of time before it gets me too, because it didn't matter what we did. It would possess people willy-nilly, at random. Like, it thrives on causing terror and misery through chaos. And
So that's how it got the whole apartment complex. It just went.
well, when the kids find, the remains of the bank vault, it is covered in like rosaries hanging from the ceiling. There's a giant crucifix that's there. The book is very much like tucked away.
Okay, so someone didn't just like store it in a bank vault. It wasn't just in like a little steel lockbox.
No, it was. I mean, granted, there were a lot of like papers and stuff in the bank vault as well. But
Yeah.
like I said, covered in rosaries and things like that, and buried. Again, I imagine that when they closed this vault, they built the apartment complex on top of it to make sure nobody would ever come down there again. But again, we don't 100% know how all that wrapped up. We don't know what happened to the priest. We just know that this version of the Necronomicon got stuffed underground and forgotten about for 100 years. And it's only this earthquake that unearths it. Danny, of course, being the teenage boy, was the one that went down and got it. And he's also,
Is he the one that read the Latin?
he actually didn't.
Did anyone read the Latin, or did it just kind of go nuts?
Well, he did, Bridget tells him, this is weird, put it away. And the elevator was out from the earthquake, and they live on, like, the top floor. And so she was like, okay, first thing in the morning, put it away. I do not want it here. I do not want it in our home. And he's like, okay. But one of the things he also found was those records. So he's not like he's not like Eric, like in the 2013 one where he's like,
Where he
straight
saw,
up,
do not interact with this book, do not touch, do not whatever, leave it alone, and went, oh, that's interesting. It seems to be a warning scrawled in blood, and then kept going.
Granted, he did do a very stupid move, which was when he saw blood hit it and it opened, he went, yeah, that fleshy
That
book,
tracks.
that fleshy book with teeth on it just opened up at the, touch of human blood. Yeah, I'll take a gander.
This tracks.
And, kudos to the art design and everything for this movie too. Whoever made the Necronomicon prop, great artwork inside. Grotesque, hideous, beautiful, loved it. A+, no notes.
Unholy terror.
Unholy terror.
Very Hieronymus Bosch.
And,
Good
and,
job.
and that was the other thing, is like there didn't seem to be like, at least as far as I'm recalling, there didn't seem to be like tons of passages in it, or like in the 2013 one where it was like, do not read this. It was mostly illustrations etched in blood, which again, yeah, very, very, very medieval depictions of gore and sadness.
A picture book Necronomicon. You don't even have to read the Latin.
Basically, it foreshadowed everything that was going to be happening that evening.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Good stuff though. But yeah, so he didn't even read anything out loud. He just listened to the recording, which again, it's another reference to the original Evil Dead, or to Evil Dead 2. Actually, no, it was in the first one as well, because they listened to the professor's recordings on the record player. So again, very, very fun.
I was gonna say, but the professors read it out loud. Like
Yes.
the Latin was read out loud. Was that the case with this as well?
Yes. The priests were reading them out loud.
I thought the recording happened after all the shit went down. You'd think they'd
There
learn.
were 3 vinyls.
Oh.
One being like, here's what we're going to do. And the second one, here's what I'm doing. Third one, I've made a terrible mistake.
They told me not to, and yet.
I fucked around and I found out. Although that being said, I think that whole sort of series of events would make a very cool Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would make a very, very cool horror movie. But yeah, so obviously when he starts messing with the vinyl records, that's when his mom gets possessed.
Oh.
And the sequence in which she does, it's exceedingly tense, because like this is happening and anybody who's seen the trailer knows that she's gonna get got. But she happens to be walking into the elevator at the time the POV, like,
oh no, the Deadite cam.
And it's elevator, and she goes all the way up. And then it stops, and like the elevator's like in shambles and everything like that, and she, you know, she's trying to hit the buttons to get out, but obviously nothing's working, and the Deadite is in the elevator with her, but you know it's invisible, you can't see it, and so it's just like she can clearly feel another presence there. One of the few things in this movie that did make me jerk and like actively react was while she's in the elevator, you see her hair get pulled back behind her ear, and she's got earrings in, and one of them just gets ripped out, and I went, whoo! I wasn't even wearing earrings at the time, but my hands flew up to my ears in sympathy. Speaking of, much like when I saw Megan and when we saw Scream 6, I was sitting next to, I want to say a teenage boy. He might have been
a very reactive person.
A very reactive person. I don't pay attention to strangers around me, but he seemed to be a younger man. But he spent a lot of the movie just in sympathy.
So what were the scenes in the trailer that we got at like the lake then?
That's actually the cold open of this movie. It is this girl. She's been dragged out to this cabin, by the lake, by her cousin and her boyfriend. This girl's name is Teresa, and she was dragged out there by her cousin Jess and Jess's boyfriend Caleb.
0 trailers for this movie. This is the fake out.
This is a fake out, yes. Apparently Jess promised Teresa that there were going to be that lots of Caleb's cute friends were going to be there, and they all seem to be no-shows. The only ones that are there are Jess, Caleb, and Teresa, and Jess has come down with some sort of illness. And so it's basically just Teresa trying to read Wuthering Heights, and Caleb, who's messing around with a drone. They actually have a fake-out POV Deadite
and
cam.
It's the drone.
It's the drone. And it's so funny because, again, sometimes it can be hard to turn off like the fanboy or fangirl part of yourself while you're absorbing a new entry in a franchise. And sure enough, when we are opening this movie with this POV shot, there's a part of me, a part that I was trying to tell, shut up, just watch the movie and enjoy it, that was being critical of the POV shot, because I'm like, you can clearly tell this was done with a drone, and not like proper Evil Dead janky handheld camera,
and then it was done with a drone in the fiction of the world.
In the fiction of the world as a fake out, and I was like, okay, I'm shutting off that part of the brain. I'm shutting off that part of my brain because kudos, movie. Well done.
All right. You got me.
You got me.
That was a good one.
You got me.
All
well played.
So did Jess come down with a bad case of the Deadite then?
Yes. Jess became a Deadite, and she definitely kills Caleb, decapitates him, and there's a
with the drone.
Well, no, actually. Well, that they play off of your expectations with that, because Teresa gets really mad that Caleb flew the drone so close to her. She was like, "You could have taken my head off," and he's like, "No, it's not powerful enough to do that. It would mess up your face real bad, but it won't take off your head." And then, of course, Deadite possessed Jess comes out after scalping Teresa, and poor Teresa's still alive, BTW, trying to get Caleb on the dock to help her. And to his credit, he was very much introduced as kind of like a dude bro guy, but the second he sees Teresa's in trouble, it's just like, oh my gosh, what happened? And then you see Deadite possess Jess. She picks up the drone, pushes it against her face so the blades cut her, and she falls into the lake. And again, to this poor guy's credit, he immediately jumps in to go after her. Because again, he has no idea what's happening. So again, and then unfortunately he gets pulled under, and the next bit of him we see is his head coming up out of the lake and landing on the dock. And then we get this beautiful shot of Deadite possessed Jess emerging from the water and just floating above the lake with the sun behind her.
That is the trailer shot.
It is. And sure enough, it's also the bit with the title card, because Evil Dead Rise comes up behind her as well. It's gorgeous, and it's a really cool, just like, we're gonna kick your teeth in opening.
Yeah.
And then that's when we cut to Beth's storyline, and the text on the screen says 1 day earlier. And the way it all wraps around is after Beth defeats the amalgamation of her family. As she and Cassie leave, a couple hours later, that's when Jess on the 5th floor, who apparently just slept through everything the night before. She's one of the few people, again, still in the apartment complex. Goes down to the parking structure. Is just like, oh my god! What the hell happened? Because she's like, she's on the phone with Teresa at the time, and she's like, oh, trust me, you're gonna have so much fun. And Teresa's trying to like weasel out of it, like she doesn't want to go. And she's like, too late, I'm already on my way to pick you up. Bye. And then looks around and goes, Jesus Christ! And then gets dead-eyed. It's the exact same ending shot as the original Evil Dead. She's standing there back to the camera, and it zooms in, and she turns around just in time to get got. So it's like, whoo,
man.
Yeah. So we ultimately don't know what happens to Teresa and Jess, but we can assume that Teresa's dead.
Yeah.
Teresa's dead, and that, but yeah, we don't know then what becomes of Deadite Jess, and again, the priest being very adamant of like, this isn't gonna stop. So we don't know what happens next.
Yay!
So this could lead into another direct sequel, or this could be just another one-off entry in the franchise.
Yeah.
I'm okay either way. Like, it was a good time regardless.
I mean, the previous one ended with, sawing a summoned evil entity in half. So
we got a very similar moment here.
Cool. Go wood chipper.
Well, it's not an Evil Dead movie without a chainsaw.
Well, we know. We know.
So yeah,
it has to be groovy at least once.
the amalgamation, like, basically, Bridget and Danny get got, and then they essentially sort of crawl inside their mom. It's real gross.
All right.
Yeah, it's a 3-headed, multi-limbed, just like I said, Dark Souls boss, just running around.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
Nightmares.
But basically, this leads to the climax of the movie in the parking structure, where they, try to grab Cass and try to kill her too. But Beth manages to distract them long enough for Cass to get away, and for Beth to grab onto the chainsaw that happens to be down there from, I guess, the construction crew that's there.
Sure.
I don't know if it's construction specifically or landscaping. I know it said it on the truck. I wasn't paying attention.
If it's a chainsaw, it's probably landscaping. Construction doesn't use chainsaws.
But so she's got the chainsaw, and then there's the mulch thing, like, right there. She tells Cass to flip the switch. Mulch thing gets turned on, and she starts chainsawing the amalgamation, like, right in the face. And like, sort of is forcing it through the mulcher. And what we get, again, another really fun nod to Evil Dead 2 is at a certain point, it's just Ellie's severed head. In much the same way that Ash had a chat with Linda's severed head in Evil Dead 2.
Did the full Jan in the Pan bit, yeah.
Exactly. And What I really appreciated about this movie too is they very much leaned into the family dynamic in a way, in a similar way that the 2013 film did, and that the original sort of canon didn't bother doing until like season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. I get it, you know, it was a student film and, you know, all sorts of other things, but the fact that Ash lost his sister was not a huge thing that the franchise really focused on in any capacity until season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. So I appreciate 2013 and this movie both like leaning in and being like, no, your family being possessed is fucking horrifying and it's fucking cruel. And they really...
And we get the bits in the trailer like mommy's sleeping with the maggots now.
Yeah.
Shit like that. It's like...
rude.
It's rude.
And again, this is a sibling relationship where one sibling, you know, much like the 2013 film, one sibling gets got and the other one doesn't. Throwing kids into the mix really does increase the stakes.
Because we talked about it with our trailer reaction, is that this is the first Evil Dead movie to put actual children in the line of fire.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We've gotten, for the most part, it's college age is the youngest we get. And they play with that a little in the series, but we don't really have kids in a serious horror movie, and that there is a specific way, if you are going to specifically put children in danger in a horror movie, that you need to handle things. Like, it's not something that can be done schlocky or for shock value. Because it's one thing to be like, this character's 15, but they're played by a 25-year-old, so it doesn't ping the same instinct in the brain.
I will say...
It's different when they're not a teenager. It's different when they are literal children.
I will say that Danny and Bridget are definitely teenagers, but the difference, and like, again, Evil Dead has sort of played with that expectation a little bit in the series Ash vs. Evil Dead, where teenagers have definitely got. But the difference here, I would say, is that if these are actors in their 20s playing teenagers, which I don't think they are, they look extremely young. I'm fairly certain these are actual
child actors.
Actual teenagers playing teenagers. Yeah. And so Cassie and I believe Scott are the only children in the movie, and Scott gets fucked up.
Oh.
It is...
You didn't tell me how they fucked up the neighbors.
It's mostly done, and this is actually a very awesome sequence, because the neighbors, this older guy, Mr. Fonda, who's kind of like this tactless bachelor or something like that, but then there's also Gabe, who again may or may not be the dad of the two other kids, or he might be their older brother. I legit don't know. But there's a sequence where they manage to get Mama Ellie out of the apartment and into the hallway, and they managed to lock the door and barricade it.
Everyone else's problem now.
Everyone else's problem now. And again, it's not like they meant to endanger these other people. Like, it was not, because that's what was happening, was like Gabe came in to check on them because you know, at this point the neighbors think Ellie is dead, has died, like in the wake of the elevator and stuff like that. And so they think she's dead at this point. So he's coming in to check on them, sees Deadeye Ellie terrorizing her family. And so Ellie turns around and attacks him. And while she's in the hallway, that's when they close the door and like barricade it. And unfortunately, he and Jake and Scott are all in the hallway. Oh no. And you see this entire thing from the peephole, which is where Beth is looking through. So it's a really cool way of going about it, because you're looking through the peephole and you're seeing, like, you know, people get pulled away from the peephole, and like then the next time you see them, they're all messed up and they fall over, and then you see like poor poor Scott run down the hallway trying to run away from Ellie, and so she leaves the frame and you hear him get murdered, and then the next time you see him it's very Paranormal Activity in that he's thrown up against the wall near the people and he has no arms anymore.
Oh God! Wow!
And
wow!
And then Ellie comes back into frame, but is immediately shot by Mr. Fonda, who previously had mentioned that he had a shotgun, because the fire escape for the building is behind an unoccupied room where the door is like locked. And so they were like trying to pick the lock, and he mentions, he's like, well, I've got a shotgun. They're like, don't do that. Like, no. But now,
Yeah,
shooting the door open seems to be a not terrible option. So, he shoots Ellie. But Deadites don't necessarily need to grab you in order to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And so he also gets Scott. And it's this very, very cool sequence that you watch from the peephole, from Beth's POV. And it's just like, you can't really, you can't, yeah, it's very well done. It's like, but you want to help, you can't. The best you can do is hope for the best while everybody on this floor just gets decimated. And poor Jake also,
man.
You know how in Evil Dead 2, there's this sequence where Henrietta's eyeball like dislodges and flies into somebody's mouth, and it's played up for laughs about how silly it is.
Oh.
That's what happens to him, only he chokes on it and dies. And that's what I meant when I was talking earlier about
a little too on the nose.
A little too on the nose with its references. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the references. Like, there was this bit, there was the box of pizza with Henrietta's on it. I liked that. I was like, that's cute.
Hey.
And then,
I understood that reference.
And then, like I mentioned before, there's the bit where, she's having the conversation with the decapitated, her decapitated sister. And there's even a bit where when she initially picks up the chainsaw, she yells, "Come get some!" And I'm like, yeah, it's fun. But like, when you see how similar it looks to the way those things are presented in Evil Dead 2, I was like, I wonder if they felt uncomfortable going so far off the beaten path by making this an apartment complex. Having it be when it comes to main characters, having it be like a mostly female-centric cast. Most of the side characters are guys, but like all of the main characters are women. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe they felt a little uncomfortable going straying that far from course. So when it came to the very specific references, they made them as on the nose as possible. And so I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like you shouldn't be afraid to do your own thing.
Like, I feel like we have Deadites. You're an Evil Dead movie.
Yeah, that's also true.
Just go.
And that might have been another thing where they were like, well, this is an Evil Dead movie. We have to make references to other.
Well, you could make some,
franchise.
but like an eyeball flew out and he choked on it and died. It's like, okay, this isn't a horror comedy. That's a horror comedy beat.
Yeah, and there are a few funny bits, but like. And again, like, very similar to the ending of 2013 when the chainsaw actually comes out, you're like, yeah, okay, here's the camp, here's what we're here to see.
But you can do that without it being super on the nose for other things.
Yeah.
I wonder if it wasn't a little like, see, we're still an Evil Dead movie. We're still an Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
We got it. Like,
yeah,
don't cater to the people who are gonna bitch about the differences. Cater to the people who understand that you can make a good Evil Dead movie without Ash Williams.
Without Ash, and without making...
And without it being a cabin in the woods.
Yeah. Without it being a cabin in the woods, without Ash, and without constantly... And granted, again, the movie did not constantly reference its predecessors, but without feeling the need to reference its predecessors.
Because the eyeball bit just, from the way you've described it, feels egregious.
A little bit.
And you don't want in anything, you don't want your references to be egregious. You want them to be like, hey.
Again, like the Henrietta's like pizza box is like, that's fun. That's fun. It doesn't detract from anything.
Yeah.
So I have mixed feelings about it in a way that I don't have mixed feelings about the 2013 one, because even though the trade-off with that one is that it allowed its characters to kind of do more of their own thing, and it allowed the story to be a little bit more of its own thing, because it was sticking so close to the original idea.
Cabin in the woods.
Because it was so close to the quote-unquote original vision of the original Evil Dead, it didn't feel the need to constantly have a character, like they even cut it from the movie of like, the bit where Mia, that they use in the trailer of, we're gonna get you now. They cut that from the movie. I guess because they didn't feel like they needed it,
It also might have been a bit that was done specifically for the trailer, because that is becoming a thing more and more, because more people have realized, hey, sometimes trailers spoil the entire movie.
That's also true. And sometimes it just comes down to like, oh yeah, we were going to use that, and then it made it onto the cutting room floor. So
it is what it is. There's also the idea of like the movie needs to be able to stand on its own, because I was making jokes about, oh yeah, are you really going to see this if you're not already an Evil Dead person? And then you told me that a friend who went to a different screening told you that he was sitting next to two people who'd never seen an Evil Dead in their life. Which,
you
fair.
Started with the one with the cheese grater?
But I mean,
that was his reaction.
If you're not into the franchise, but you're like, I want to see a really crazy horror movie, and this one's got the cheese grater, then yeah, it would make sense to go. And in that case, it does need to be able to stand on its own. And again, I come back to the eyeball, like, how much does that stand out for someone who doesn't know it's a reference?
I don't know.
How much is that just like, where the fuck did that come from?
I'll be honest, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I can't
We would need to talk to someone who...
with fresh eyes. I can't unknow what I don't know. But I do feel like there is... Like, if you don't know those are on-the-nose references, then, it probably doesn't faze you in any way, shape, or form. It's just one of those things where, like, I notice because I know these movies really well, and, it hasn't been a million years since I've seen... There are some people who maybe saw Evil Dead once when they were a teenager and haven't since the 80s,
I'm wondering if there's anyone who walked into it going, oh yeah, Evil Dead, that's a horror comedy, right? Then walked into this and went,
like,
oh boy!
Maybe missed the 2013 movie. And they were like, oh yeah, fun, silly times. I remember a couple...
Like, yeah, that's the comedy with the zombies and the groovy and the, yeah, sure, I'll go. And then showing up and being like,
with the silly stop motion and the groovy and the Three Stooges acting and everything like that.
Yeah, the stuff. I got it. I know what this is. I got this.
I will say, Army of Darkness being my first Evil Dead, like,
does not prepare you for the rest of the French.
It really doesn't. And I sat there wondering, like, like, I'm clearly missing quite a bit. Like, they do a recap at the very beginning of the movie, and I'm like, I feel like I should have seen a different movie before I sat down to watch this.
Whereas my first Evil Dead was Evil Dead 2,
I'm sorry.
Purchased on iTunes and downloaded onto the ancient computer in the room that we back then shared, that didn't finish downloading until 1 a.m.?
Sorry.
Was it? No, I'm trying to remember.
It was.
It didn't finish downloading until 1 a.m. That was, well, I want to watch this movie. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm here.
I'm sorry.
So the movie was over at like 2:30, 2:40 in the morning, and me just flopped over on my bed like, we're putting something else on now.
I was going to say, this usually comes up whenever we talk about Evil Dead in any context, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
that was
funny
one of
now.
my biggest jerk moves. I'm so sorry.
It's funny now, but again, I feel like purchased on iTunes and downloaded on an ancient computer should, like, put this in perspective, but this was also a decade ago.
Yeah.
This was a while.
Yeah.
So it's not like, well, why didn't you just, like, pull it up on your phone on streaming and go somewhere else? Or why didn't you, like, that wasn't an option. This was back when Netflix was still on DVDs only.
Yeah, if it had been a little bit more of an option, I wouldn't have pulled such a jerk move, but I pulled it. It doesn't. There's no excuse for it. It was a jerk move.
Oh, it's funny now. It's fucking funny.
I will never stop apologizing.
And
for
it is a great story for parties and videos.
It was funny though. I think I told you that when
It could have been worse. It could have been The Exorcist.
Oh no!
Or Hostel.
That I would not have done that to you.
I know. That's why I'm sitting here going, it could have been worse. There's a number of other movies where it would have been like, I need you to turn this off right the fuck now. Whereas this one was like, sure is a deer head having a really good time.
Especially you, Moose! Shut up!
I think it took me 2 or 3 watches before I started dubbing over the Deadites.
Oh no, you did that immediately.
Was that immediate?
That was a coping mechanism.
Okay, it was a coping mechanism. Great.
That was a 1:30 in the morning coping mechanism to this horrible movie that horrible roommate.
The fact that I got half an hour into it before I started doing that.
I remember a couple years ago, I was actually home for some holiday weekend, and just my family was still in the process of like cleaning the house and everything like that. So they were just like, oh, make yourself at home. So I sat down and I thought I had like 15 minutes to myself and I'm just flipping through the channels and Evil Dead 2 is on. And so I'm like, oh, I'll watch Evil Dead 2 until my family comes back in and sits back down, and then I'll change it to whatever they want to watch. And so my mom actually came in 5 minutes in, and so I was like, oh, and I changed the channel immediately, and she's like, no, you don't have to do that. And I was like, okay. I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yes, like, please watch whatever you want to watch, like, you don't have to change the channel on my account. And I went, okay, and I turned it back, and she sat down and watched it with me for a couple minutes, and she looked at me very confused. She's never understood my love of horror, and she just goes, I don't understand. Do you like this because it's scary or because it's silly? And I said, yes. And I was like, this movie...
Like, no, that's how this works.
This movie in particular is both. And she just went, huh. I don't get you. Like, it was very... She didn't say that, but she just very much gave me this look of like, I do not understand.
Alright, so we're nearing the end.
We are nearing the end. I'm almost done with my whiskey, and you're almost done with your popcorn.
About a dozen pieces.
So, yes.
How was the cheese grater? Because that's been, for those of you going, what the fuck is the cheese grater? There is definitely a bit in the trailer where a cheese grater gets dug into someone's leg and pulled. And you know how on Twitter sometimes if there's a sponsored hashtag for something, like you'll do the Mandalorian and then it'll have a little emoji of Grogu after it or whatever. Evil Dead Rise emoji had a cheese grater after it. And I discovered that there is no cheese grater emoji in the Android keyboard. And I think this is a mistake that needs to be rectified.
I concur with that assessment.
So with the cheese grater being such a shock moment, and again, we did a reaction to this trailer on this channel. You can see me transcend reality for about 2.5 minutes. It was the Red Band trailer, and I was not prepared.
If you want to if you haven't watched, go watch it first and foremost. But if you don't have the time, or if you've already seen it, basically what that trailer reaction was me being the sickos meme, going yes, yes,
and me over here going.
I was actually going to say, you're the Tanjiro meme, looking at his phone with that look of disgust on his face.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what our trailer reactions on this channel are. Yes, yes.
To be fair, sometimes I'm just as into it as you are. Red Band trailer for Evil Dead Rise is not so fucking much. But I chose not to go for a reason, and it was the correct choice for me.
It was the correct choice. I will tell you exactly what I told you when you asked me that question when I initially came back from the movie. The cheese grater was effective. Although, I will say, like, it is definitely the bit that got the loudest reaction from the audience when I went and saw the movie. It wasn't like a clap and cheer audience, but it was an audience that was very reactive to the practical gore that was happening. Like I said, the guy next to me, the entire movie. It was great.
Just lean in like, it gets worse.
Well, no, he was also having a great time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was one of those guys that when I saw it in an AMC, when the Nicole Kidman intro bit, he knew every word and was saying every word aloud.
So you had a good audience.
I had a great audience. I wish it had been
At
like
little
9:30
p.m. on a Thursday or something.
I think that's the reason why there wasn't clapping and cheering, was because it was 9:30, so it was a little later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cheese grater got the loudest reaction from the audience, myself included, because it happened and I went, ah! Because I was like, there it is! Because normally I'm not the type of person to go, oh! Or, ooh! Like, normally I'm just like, yes. But this
Normally you are Beast Wars Megatron. Yes.
But like every now and again, especially when it comes to like newer content that you haven't absorbed before, every now and then, I'm not made of stone.
It gets ya.
I'm like, ooh, ooh, that looks like it hurts.
And so it got a yell from the crowd.
It got a yell from the crowd, but I will say it pulled the Saw trick, actually, from the original Saw, where what you imagine happening is actually what's worse than what you're seeing. Because you see the cheese grater come down, we get reaction shot of, like, and I don't know, maybe I just repressed this, but the way I remember it happening is we see the cheese grater come down, we see Beth reacting to it because it's her leg, and then we see the aftermath. We don't actually see it like actually doing its thing. We see the aftermath. And so I think it's one of those things where what you would, and honestly,
effective.
The aftermath did not look too terrible. And so I think it's one of those things where just imagining it in your brain is way worse than anything they could actually show you.
Who among us has not taken off the skin of their knuckles on a cheese grater at least once? Like,
It hurts.
It hurts. Like, that's a thing that happens, even if you are very, very careful. Sometimes things just get caught. Cheese graters are made of sharp edges.
They're made of tiny little knives.
Cheese graters are not your fucking friends.
No, they're bad.
They're great for cheese, but they're not your fucking friends.
They're not your friend, no.
So just the idea of, like, everyone kind of has that moment. Yeah. The idea of it being dug in and pulled is just like,
Yeah, not cool, Deadeye Beth. Oh, no, Deadeye Bridget, sorry.
Oh, no.
Deadeye Bridget. Yeah, much like the 2013 film, the most competent, responsible child, you know, the middle girl, high five. She's the first one after mom to get dead-eyed-ified.
Aww.
It's heartbreaking too. It's pretty gnarly. But again, at the same time, the priest was pointing out there's no rhyme or reason. Like, this is not in any way, shape, or form like a reflection on her strength or willpower. It's just fucking bad luck, man.
Fucking demon.
Yeah. But yeah.
There's a Kandarian demon that is out to do some shit.
Oh, the men in my life keep getting killed by Kandarian demons.
All right. Last question. I think.
Uh-huh.
How would you recommend this to someone?
Probably exactly like I did at the top. If you're already a fan of the franchise, you've already seen it.
A fan of the franchise?
Yep, a fan of the franchise.
You're a fan of the franchise.
If you're a fan of the franchise, you've already seen it. You don't need me to tell you to go see it. Like, you've already taken a look at it and you've already had a great time. If you're not, I hesitate to say that this movie won't change your mind, because maybe you don't like the original trilogy for how campy it is. If you want something a little bit more grounded, a little bit more I guess, that takes itself a little bit more seriously. This and the 2013 movie are probably a little bit more up your alley. But if you didn't like the 2013 movie because of how seriously it took itself, then this is more of that. Just a different setting and different set of characters. So you probably... all of my recommendations, like, in regards to that, require context for where are you at in the franchise. If you're coming at the franchise completely new, like you have not absorbed any other entries, like you've never seen any of the other movies, you haven't watched Ash vs. Evil Dead, you're coming in completely blind.
Welcome to the deep end. I hope you like gore.
I still think, like, it, you know, much like the 2013 movie, it does stand on its own. You can sit down and enjoy it for what it is if you like these types of horror movies.
Yes.
If you are not big on stuff that makes you squirm, like, I won't call it torture porn, but it definitely is gnarly gore. Or at the very least, very visceral violence.
Yeah, it's not torture porn, but it's a little fucked up.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it torture porn in any capacity, but it is, like I said, visceral violence. And if you are not a visceral violence type of person, or if you're the type of person where you see a kid in peril and you're like, nope, 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 nope.
Maybe not this one.
Not this one. Not this one. But if you are, one, a fan of the franchise, like I said, you've already seen it. But two, if you're also looking for a horror movie to just kind of kick your teeth in, it's a good time. I'm in between horror hyperfixations right now, and so I've been jonesing for something to punch me in the face. And this, like, I'm like, you got one in there. Good job, Evil Dead Rise. I'm gonna feel that in the morning. Good job.
Like, if you'd like to feel some pain, go see this movie.
In the best way.
Yes.
In the best way.
Yes.
So that is my very, very weird recommendation of, if you want to get punched in the face, go see Evil Dead Rise. You'll feel it in the morning. It's great.
Some people just want to get face punched.
Yeah.
And that's how we end this. Some people just want to get face punched.
Yeah. Yeah. No other questions? All good?
Hey, I'm outie. We're done.
All right.
Had that below frame.
On that...
I'm outie. We're done.
On that
Couple kernels in there.
Katie, where can people go if they want to keep up with you?
You can follow me all over the social medias, as well as on YouTube and Twitch at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. If you like reactions to non-horror things, including the latest volume of Ruby, also the Twitch VOD that we've done, they live on that YouTube channel. I am also a co-host for Nighttime at the Nerd Bar on the Fanversation YouTube channel. It is a weekly nerdy news show. We recap anime, we talk about nerdy news, we talk about video games, we have all sorts of fun. 7:30 p.m. Pacific streams live on the Fanversation YouTube channel. We have a live chat, join us, it's a very good time.
And I'm Megan. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. This is normally the part where I'd go into, like,
Talk
check
about
out Silver Screams.
Because we've been doing a lot of recording from my channel recently.
But I also have a Lost retrospective podcast called No Love Lost, where my co-host Will Link loves Lost, and I don't. We talk about it, so go check that out. You can follow us at Silver_Screams, like us on Facebook, all that jazz. I want to know, if you have seen Evil Dead Rise, what did you think of it? And, but even if you haven't, ooh.
Best kill in the franchise.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good one. Do you have one?
I feel like I should, but my brain's just like...
My thought process is the musical, Ash killing Deadite Linda, because it's the bit right before intermission, and it is definitely we are spraying the audience in the splash zone.
Evil Dead the musical has a blood splash zone.
It's great. It's so wonderful. It is hands down, I think my actual tier list is Evil Dead the musical, Evil Dead 2. Although those are probably, like, they'll go back and forth depending on the day.
Gotta kind of go with chainsawing an evil entity that showed up on this earth as your doppelganger in half.
That's a good
Gotta
one.
go with that. That's pretty hardcore.
Feast on this motherfucker was a great moment. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Ooh, best kill. That's tough. There are a lot of good ones. Most of them devolve into chainsaw murders.
That is what this franchise is.
Yeah, Mia killing the evil manifestation taking on her form with a chainsaw while it rains blood all around them. Yeah, I think that might take the top spot.
Might take it. Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I'll go with.
There's a lot of violence that isn't an immediate kill, because also like the pencil in the ankle is one of those like whoa moments, but it's not a kill.
Yeah, I'll give
Put
it
myself
to
in the corner.
I'll give it to Linda in the musical for top spot, but Mia sawing the demon in half at the end of 2013 is a close second. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good call. All right, yeah, thank you guys. Again, we want to hear what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. You know they didn't play that in the movie?
Yeah, I figured it was just in the trailer.